Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Jared Moon here today. We're going to be doing something a little bit different, and for two reasons. One, I want to start giving a little bit of a taste to the new format that I'm planning for the podcast as we near our goal of 10,000 better humans. So right now, getting closer and closer to 9,000 each and every single day. So we will shortly hit 10,000 better humans, which is awesome. Goal achieved, and with that will be a change in the podcast, different formats, different styles. The second reason, currently writing a book. It's summing up a lot of lessons learned from the podcast, life in general, things like that. And a lot of this book is about being uncomfortable. And I'm going to share a lot more information with you, but just some of the research that I'm going over and uncovering, I want to start sharing in the podcast. Really, to be honest, as quite literally as a test base. You guys have been here for a long time. I know that you want to be better humans and that this information is something that you want to learn more about. So I'll be uncovering that, especially a lot in the new format. And as we grow closer and closer to that book being complete and also hitting 10,000 better humans. So this is the first podcast kind of in the new format. This won't be official. We still have a lot of guests coming up and everything. But when the new change comes around, this is kind of some of the stuff we'll be doing. And I would love to get your feedback. If you want to hit me up on Instagram, I'm at EO3_fit. Shoot me an email, whatever you want. I would love to hear more feedback from you guys. Always refreshing to hear from listeners. Now, what am I going over today? Well, today I want to read a little bit about and discuss Kennedy's The Soft American. So on December 26, 1960, President-elect at the time, John F. Kennedy, wrote a piece for Sports Illustrated touting the importance of physical soundness for Americans, for kids and grown-ups alike. The title of his piece was called The Soft American. If you've never read it before, I'm pretty much going to read it in its entirety today, but if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper on it, you can. I will be taking brief pauses to talk about certain things, because he wrote this in 1960, right? And, fast forward, we're in 2019. Things have changed quite a bit and probably not in the direction Kennedy was hoping for. And he never got to see any of this come to fruition or the things that he wanted, even though he urged the society to move in a different direction. We've only gotten worse. So I'm going to read The Soft American by John Kennedy, and we'll talk about it with some more information that I've gathered as we go along. So here we go. Beginning more than 2,500 years ago, from all quarters of the Greek world, men thronged every 4 years to the sacred grove of the Olympia under the shadow of Mount Cronus to compete in the most famous athletic contest of history, the Olympian Games. During the contest, a sacred truce was observed among all the states of Greece as the best athletes of the Western world competed in boxing and foot races, wrestling and chariot races for the wreath of wild olive which had the prize of victory. When the winners returned to their home cities to lay the Olympian crown in the chief temples, they were greeted as heroes and received rich rewards. For the Greeks prized physical excellence and athletic skills among man's greatest goals and among the prime foundations of a vigorous state. Thus, the same civilizations which produce some of our highest achievements of philosophy and drama, government and art, also gave us a belief in the importance of physical soundness, which has become a part of Western tradition. From the mens sana and corpore sano of the Romans to the British belief that the playing fields of the Eton brought victory on the battlefields of Europe. This knowledge, the knowledge that the physical well-being of the citizen is an important foundation for the vigor and vitality of all activities of the nation, is as old as Western civilization itself. But it is a knowledge which today in America we are in danger of forgetting. This was written in 1960, everyone. 1960, Kennedy is worried about where we're at and the possibility of losing the importance of physical fitness as part of our nation. I won't draw any conclusions for you. Where do you think our nation stands compared to 1960? Do you think that information is in danger of being forgotten, or do you think it is completely forgotten? The first indication of a decline in the physical strength and ability of young Americans became apparent among United States soldiers in the early stages of the Korean War. The second came when figures were released showing that almost 1 out of every 2 young Americans was being rejected by selective service as mentally, morally, or physically unfit. But the most startling demonstration of the general physical decline of American youth came when Dr. Hans Cross and Dr. Sonia Weber revealed the results of 15 years of research centering in the posture clinic of New York's Columbia Presbyterian Hospital results of physical fitness tests given to 4,264 children in this country and 2,870 children in Australia, Italy, and Switzerland. So they did a big 15-year test across different nations here. Now, the findings showed that despite our unparalleled standard of living, despite our good food and our many playgrounds, despite our emphasis on school athletics, American youth lagged far behind Europeans in physical fitness. 6 tests for muscular strength and flexibility were given. 57.9% of the American children failed one or more of these tests, while only 8.7% of the European youngsters failed. A consistent decline, kind of the next section here. Especially disheartening were the results of the 5 strength tests. 35.7% of American children failed one or more of these, while only 1.1% of Europeans failed. And among Austrian and Swiss youth, the rate of failure was as low as 0.5%. As a result of the alarming Cross-Weber findings, President Eisenhower created a council on youth fitness at the cabinet level and appointed a citizen advisory committee on the fitness of American youth, composed of prominent citizens interested in fitness. Over the past 5 years, the physical fitness of American youth has been discussed in forums, by committees, and in leading publications. A 10-point program for physical fitness has been publicized and promoted. Our schools have been urged to give increased attention to physical well-being for their students, yet there has been no noticeable improvement. Physical fitness tests conducted last year in Britain and Japan showed that the youth of these countries were considerably more fit than our own children. And the annual physical fitness test for freshmen at Yale University shows a consistent decline in the prowess of young American. 51% of the class of 1951 passed the test, 43% of the class of 1956 passed, only 38%, a little more than a third of the class of 1960 succeeded in passing the not overly rigorous examination. He goes on to say, of course, physical tests are not infallible. They can distort the true health picture. There are undoubtedly many American youths and adults whose physical fitness matches and exceeds the best of other lands. But the harsh fact of the matter is that there's also an increasingly large number of young Americans who are neglecting their bodies, whose physical fitness is not what it should be, who are getting soft. And such softness on the part of individual citizens can help to strip and destroy the vitality of a nation. For the physical vigor of our citizens is one of America's most precious resources. If we waste and neglect this resource, if we allow it to dwindle and grow soft, then we will destroy much of our ability to meet the great and vital challenges which confront our people. We will be unable to realize our full potential as a nation. Now let's just zoom out here for a second. Kennedy's worried that if we don't embrace physical culture, if we don't become more active, we will not realize our full potential as a nation. Well, let's hop off the grand scale for a minute. You as a human being, your kids, your coworkers, if they are not starting to or trying to reach for their peak physical capacity, they will never, as a human being, reach their full potential in any capacity. Obviously physical, but mental. And he talks about that a little bit. Let's go back to it. Throughout our history, we have been challenged to armed conflict by nations which sought to destroy our independence or threaten our freedom. The young men of America have risen to those occasions, giving themselves freely to the rigors and hardships of warfare. But the stamina and strength which the defense of liberty requires are not produced of a few weeks' basic training or a month's conditioning. These only come from bodies which have been conditioned by a lifetime of participation in sports and interest in physical activity. Our struggles against aggressors throughout our history have been won on the playgrounds and corner lots and fields of America. Again, our struggles against aggressors throughout our history have been won on the playgrounds and corner lots and fields of America. You know, it's real basic what he's saying there. You can't, if we had to go to war, or if for any reason your fitness had to be called upon, Maybe it wasn't war. Maybe it's something else that happened. Maybe it wasn't something good. You can't all of a sudden get conditioned for that. You can't do that in 6 weeks. You can't do that with a basic conditioning program over 10 weeks. He said it's a lifetime pursuit, and I 100% agree with that. He continues, thus, in a very real and immediate sense, our growing softness, our increasing lack of physical fitness is a menace to our security. Now, I want to go complete sidebar here for a second and talk about the reality of that situation by pulling up or telling you about here. There's a TED Talk, and you can research this TED Talk if you want to. It is by Lieutenant General Mark Hartling, and it was at a TEDx Talk Mid-Atlantic in 2012. The title of the TED Talk is Obesity is a National Security Issue. And the reason I like to contrast this, so we're going back from 1960. Kennedy's worried about these people. He's worried about what it means for our nation, the defense of our country. And now, like I said, Kennedy didn't see any of this. He didn't know what was coming. He was already concerned about this stuff in 1960. Fast forward to 2012, Hartling gives this talk. What does he tell us? Well, a few things from his 16-minute TED Talk, which I really think that you should go listen to. He really thinks that obesity is a national security. This is 2012. He said 75% of the 17 to 24-year-old candidates who wanted to serve in the military were not qualified, and the number one reason was obesity. So 75% of 17 to 24-year-olds could not serve in the military due to their obesity. Now, going even further, he said of the 25% who could serve, they gave a very simple, not the full PT test, they gave a very simple PT test on the first day of just 1 minute of push-ups, 1 minute of sit-ups, and 1 mile run. So not the full test that they normally do. And 60% of those could not pass. 60% of the 25% who are eligible, 60% of them could not pass that test. And guys, I don't know how much you know about military physical fitness tests. One, they are not difficult. Two, the pass rate standards, like if you want to do the best, you want to just have the best possible score, the tests are actually pretty difficult. Coming from the Air Force, the standard Air Force test had a 1.5 mile run in it, and to max that out to do the best you possibly could, you have to basically run a 9-minute 1.5 mile. That is challenging. But just to pass, you could run up to 12, 13 minutes dependent on your age and some other factors there. So just to pass that test is not hard. It should not be hard for most Americans. So we're looking at, okay, 25%, only 25% of the people who want to serve in the military are actually fit to do so, and of those, 60% can't even pass the test. And then he went on to say that he was concerned because in the late 90s, most states started to stop physical fitness testing or having any sort of physical fitness program in the schools. So Kennedy talks about Eisenhower implementing all this stuff. That's great. Happened in the 50s into the 60s, and a lot of that got shut down. And now fast forward to the 90s, it basically stopped across all, as standardized testing becomes more important to everyone and less about physical. And at the time, he said in 2012, there were only 5 states that even had a physical requirement as part of the curriculum. So pretty crazy stuff to just translate that from where Kennedy thought the world was 1960 to where we were at in 2012, according to this general. All right, so back to the soft American. He does say, and this is an important point because the whole reason I'm reading this is because I'm not necessarily concerned about the defense of our nation, even though that is a problem, but just more the state of our nation. And he says that too. He says, however, we do not, like the ancient Spartans, wish to train our bodies of our youth to make them more effective warriors. It is our profound hope and expectation that Americans will never again have to expend their strength in armed conflict. Well, that obviously didn't happen. But the physical fitness is vital to the activities of peace as those to war, especially when our success in those activities may well determine the future of freedom in the years to come. We face in the Soviet Union a powerful and implacable adversary determined to show the world that only the communist system possesses the vigor and determination necessary to satisfy awakening aspirations for progress and the elimination of poverty and want. To meet the challenge of this enemy will require determination and will and effort on the part of all Americans. Only if our citizens are physically fit, they will be fully capable of such an effort. For physical fitness is not only one of the most important keys to a healthy body, it is the basis of dynamic and creative intellectual activity. And that's the point I was trying to drive home earlier. Just being fit, like going after a six-pack or losing some weight, man, that is like the beginning of all this stuff. That's great. Go, if you want to lose 5 pounds, go for it. You want to see your six-pack for the first time in your life, awesome. But what physical readiness and a high level of physical fitness can do for your mental capacity, you're firing at a different level other humans don't even understand. This intellectual creativity and activity he's talking about, it's unparalleled. People don't understand this. They think that their day-to-day life of waking up, sick and tired is normal, and running out of gas at 2 p.m. is normal. None of this stuff is normal, guys. It's what America has conditioned us to. It's the state of our society. All right, he goes further to say the relationship between the soundness of the body and the activities of the mind is subtle and complex. Much is not yet understood, but we do know what the Greeks knew. That intelligence and skill can only function at the peak of their capacity when the body is healthy and strong. That hardy spirits and tough minds usually inhabit sound bodies. In this sense, physical fitness is the basis for all activities of our society, and if our bodies grow soft and inactive, we fail to encourage physical development and prowess. We will undermine our capacity for thought, for work, and for the use of those skills vital to an expanding and complex America. Thus, the physical fitness of our citizens is a vital prerequisite to Americans' realization of its full potential as a nation, and to the opportunity of each individual citizen to make full and fruitful use of these capacities. It is ironic that at a time when the magnitude of our dangers makes the physical fitness of our citizen a matter of increasing importance, it takes greater effort and determination than ever before to build the strength of our bodies. The age of leisure and abundance can destroy vigor and muscle tone as effortlessly as it can gain time. Today, human activity, the labor of human body, is rapidly being engineered out of working life. By the 1970s, according to many economists, the man who works with his hands will be almost extinct. That's close to true. Many of the routine physical activities which earlier Americans took for granted are no longer a part of our daily life. A single look at the packed parking lot of the average high school will tell us what has happened to the traditional hike to school that helped us to build young bodies. The television set, the movies, and the myriad of conveniences and distractions of modern life all lure our young people away from the strenuous physical activity that is the basis of fitness in youth and in later life. Now is the time. Of course, modern advances and increasing leisure can add greatly to the comfort and enjoyment of life, but they must not be confused with indolence with, in the words of Theodore Roosevelt, slothful ease, with an increasing deterioration of our physical strength. For the strength of our youth and the fitness of our adults are among our most important assets, and this growing decline is a matter of urgent concern to thoughtful Americans. This is a national problem and requires national action. President Eisenhower helped show the way through his own interest by calling national attention to our deteriorating standards of physical fitness. Now is the time for the United States to move forward with a national program to improve the fitness of all Americans. Now, I'm not gonna read his entire plan here. He kind of put forth a 4-part plan, and it's relatively short. You guys could read it if you want, but the whole thing's almost over. But here's the deal. I will read one little excerpt of the second part of his plan. You know, a big part of his thing, obviously, running for president and being part of the political system, is he thought a lot of this was on the government and the White House and, what the governor should do, what the president should do, and all this stuff. And the reason I'm not going to read it is because I don't think most of this really ever played itself out, and it's definitely not playing itself out to today. But one thing he did say, he said, in addition to the Department of Health and Education and Welfare should use all existing facilities to attach the lack of youth fitness as a major health problem, going on to say that, it should be part of our education. And now I want to, we fast forwarded to 2012, and now this is in 1960. I want to rewind to 1917. I was at a bookstore a long time ago, and I snagged this book called Healthy Living by Charles Winslow. And this book was published in 1917, and it was part of education. Standard, this specific one was from Oklahoma school system, and it was just a part of the school system there and stuff that they were teaching. and it is about healthy living. Now, if you go through the whole thing, a lot of it is very basics. Like it talks about vaccinations, it talks about cleanliness, but it also talks about cold baths and physical exercise, and the state of kids being athletic and the mindset athletes should have. I mean, pretty awesome stuff for being written in 1917. This was being taught in schools in 1917. This whole, let's just put it on the school system and educate everyone. Education and logic do not work. Science does not work. Look, I love science as much as the next guy, but there is no scientific study that's going to convince you or anyone else to get out there and put in the work, because putting in the work sucks. It's uncomfortable. What we have to learn is how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a lot about what I'm writing about in my book and where all this research is leading to. Now I'm going to finish out what he said, and then we'll finish out this shorter podcast episode. But no matter how vigorous the leadership of the government, we can fully restore the physical soundness of our nation only if every American is willing to assume responsibility for his own fitness and the fitness of his children. It's your responsibility. We do not live in a regimented society where men are forced to live their lives in the interest of the state. We are, all of us, as free to direct the activities of our bodies as we are to pursue the objects of our thought. But if we are to retain this freedom for ourselves and for generations to come, then we must also be willing to work for the physical toughness on which the courage and intelligence and skill of a man so largely depend. All of us must consider our own responsibilities for the physical vigor of our children and of the young men and women of our community. We do not want our children to become a generation of spectators. Rather, we want each of them to be a participant in the vigors of life. All right, that was The Soft American by John F. Kennedy, 1960. Google it, read through it if you want, take some notes. I think it's really phenomenal stuff. And a lot of, like I said, what I'm researching right now on my book I'm writing about being uncomfortable. It takes a lot of daily discomfort, everyday daily discomfort to become better. And as I was saying earlier, there is no education. This is not on the school system. This is not on the president. This is not on anyone else but us. If you are responsible for another human being in some sort of leadership or management position at your job, or if you are the leader in your household, whatever you take, whoever you influence, this has to be a part of it, guys. There's no such thing as a fitness person. Like, oh, well, they're into fitness. That's not really my thing. That's not a thing. No one is a fitness person. We all have to develop these habits. They're uncomfortable. They suck. And we have to help other people do it too. Because it is a serious issue. So we could talk about national security and how, yeah, maybe the next war, if it's a big one, like, so to put in contrast, guys, like how many people have died in Iraq and Afghanistan compared to how many people would die, in a single campaign in Vietnam or World War II? I mean, just look at the numbers. We didn't need as many bodies for our current conflict. If anything were to ever pop off again, World War II style, going into World War III, something like that, we needed everybody. We wouldn't have the people, and we would be destroyed. But on top of that, what do you think is going to happen to healthcare in the next couple of years? Do you think that the economy can really support what's happening with the inflated healthcare prices and everyone being sick and out of shape? It's on us. All right, that's all I have for today. Let me know your thoughts on this new style. And if you're interested in the book, there'll be a lot more here talking about some of the concepts and principles.
your best. Losers always whine about their best.